Hey, welcome. We're about to dive right into a puzzle that kind of challenges everything we think we know about our own history. We're all taught that human progress is this nice, neat, straight line, from simple tools to the complex tech we have today. But what if the evidence tells a totally different story? A story about some seriously advanced knowledge that might have existed thousands of years ago.
So let's just start with this question right here. What if our history books are missing a chapter? Seriously, what if ancient civilizations had technologies that we've only just managed to rediscover? Today, we are digging into the artifacts and the massive structures that well, they don't fit the neat little timeline we've all been given. And this, right here, this really gets to the heart of the mystery. Over on the left, you've got the tools that archaeologists say the ancient Egyptians and other cultures had. We're talking soft copper chisels, basic flint knives, and stone pounders. But then you look at the results on the right. Perfectly smooth granite, gigantic blocks cut with incredible precision, these sweeping arcs. I mean, there's a massive disconnect between the tools and the final product. Okay, so let's zoom in on that first category of evidence because it's a big one. We're talking about the incredible stonework you find at ancient sites all over the world that seems to just laugh in the face of the tools they supposedly had.
And look, this isn't just some fringe idea from the internet. We're talking about modern experts, engineers, and stonemasons, the people who actually cut and shape hard stone for a living today. They look at this ancient work and they have some serious doubts. They've gone on record saying they just don't see how it's possible to get these kinds of finishes with primitive hand tools.
Let's just break this down because it's wild. You've got granite and diorite, super hard stones, supposedly worked with soft copper chisels, yet they have marks on them that look like they came from a machine. You have huge basalt blocks, apparently shaped with stone pounders, but they have perfectly flat, smooth surfaces. And these massive megalithic stones, moved with simple levers, are somehow cut into these impossibly fine arcs. The math just doesn't add up. All this evidence, it really forces you to ask some pretty out-there questions. I mean, when we see what look like machining marks, could it be because, well, they were actually using machines? Tools that we'd recognize today, like giant circular saws or high-speed drills that have just been lost to time. All right, let's shift gears a bit. It's not just about massive construction. The mystery actually gets way, way deeper when we start looking at these small, intricate artifacts that seem totally out of place for their time. And the poster child for these kinds of artifacts has got to be the Antikythera mechanism. It was found in a Roman-era shipwreck off the coast of Greece, and believe me, this thing has had researchers scratching their heads for decades. Just let that number sink in for a second. 2,200 years old. To give you some perspective, this thing was built centuries before the Roman Colosseum even existed. It predates the complex clocks of medieval Europe by more than 1,000 years. So what was it? Incredibly, it was an ancient analog computer. Tucked inside a wooden case were more than 30 complex, interlocking bronze gears that basically modeled the cosmos. This thing could track the sun and the moon, it could predict solar and lunar eclipses, and it even modeled the funky motions of the planets. And here's the kicker. The level of mechanical genius in this device wasn't seen again on Earth for over 1,000 years. Okay, next up, another really fascinating puzzle, the Baghdad Battery. This thing was found near, well, modern-day Baghdad, and it's about 2,000 years old, and it suggests a pretty startling possibility that someone in the ancient world might have known about electricity. The design itself is actually really simple. It's a clay pot with a copper cylinder inside and an iron rod stuck through the middle. If you fill it with an acidic liquid, like vinegar or even grape juice, it can produce a small electric charge. Now, we have no idea what it was used for, but just the fact that it exists is a huge anomaly in the historical record. But if you think that's strange, let's go even further back in time, like way further back, with the Klerksdorp spheres. These are these little grooved spheres that were found by miners way down in a mine in South Africa. And here is the truly mind-bending part. They were found embedded in mineral deposits that are dated to be 2.8 billion years old. That's billion with a B. That is long before even the simplest multicellular life is supposed to have shown up. Now, most geologists will tell you they're natural formations, but the people who believe in this ancient tech theory, they point to the incredibly consistent shape and the grooves as proof that they were manufactured. If they're right, these things would be the most out-of-place artifacts of all time. Okay, so we've got all this completely baffling evidence. Precision stonework, ancient computers, maybe even batteries. So how do we explain any of it? Well, it leads us to question that whole idea that technological progress is a straight, unbroken line heading ever upward. This timeline just lays out the problem perfectly. Using the Antikythera mechanism as an example, you have this incredibly complex device way back in 200 BCE, and then nothing. A complete technological desert for over 1,000 years, until similar geared devices, like the first mechanical clocks, finally start popping up in Europe. It really suggests that knowledge can be gained and then just profoundly lost.
One theory that tries to explain this is what you could call recycled technology. The idea kind of goes like this. A civilization develops some really advanced knowledge. Then something terrible happens, a cataclysm, a societal collapse, and all that knowledge is lost. It might survive in little bits and pieces, only to be rediscovered and repurposed centuries, maybe even millennia later. And then there's a more controversial idea that comes up in the source material. This theory asks if some of this information might actually be actively suppressed. The suggestion is that when discoveries are made that contradict the established historical timeline, they sometimes get ignored or dismissed, just to protect the conventional story of human progress.
So after looking at all this evidence and these different theories, you might be sitting there asking, okay, but why does any of this matter to us today? Why is it so important to question these things? Well, the implications are actually pretty huge. For one, studying the ingenuity of our ancestors could inspire totally new ways of solving modern problems. For another, it gives us a much more humble and frankly realistic view of history. It wasn't some simple march forward. And finally, maybe the most important thing, is that challenging our assumptions is how we find new truths and get a much clearer picture of who we are and where we really came from.
Ultimately, all these artifacts and incredible structures are just a powerful reminder that history is still a living mystery. They're an invitation for us to stay curious, to keep asking questions, which really leaves us with one last thing to ponder. What other secrets, what other forgotten chapters of human genius are still out there, just waiting for us to find them?